Greetings, everybody. This is Srinivasa with ItsdiffAcademy and Orality Infotainment. It's a pleasure to meet you again. And now we have got one of our guest speaker here. He's a speaker, he's a writer, he's a coach, and he's a global enterprise sales leader. Very, very inspiring person. And in fact, recently I got an opportunity to review his book, Runaway Growth, Seven Life and Business Lessons from Running Marathon Across Seven Continents. And he is basically a member of a Seven Continents Club. Welcome, Satish. It was very, very inspirational to read your book, to learn about various process, the having the right mindset, and of course the growth mindset, as they say, and also interestingly finishing strong. So very motivational. First of all, thanks for writing such inspirational books, which motivates youngsters and everybody who wants to get some nice positive energy. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Sri. I'm delighted to be here. I feel so fortunate to be part of this, and thank you very much. Grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, a pleasure. And one thing. So, what motivated you, first of all, to marathon? Let's start with that.
So this was back in 2011. I think this was about 10, 12 years ago now, right? So, if I rewind a little bit, right? In my childhood, I was always the adventurous type. I was the youngest among four boys. As you can imagine, in a household with four boys, will be precocious by nature and very naughty, right? Very adventurous. And so I always was that way. But then, I came to the US, went to college, got a great job, got married, wonderful life partner in my wife Deepa, and two wonderful kids. And then you start getting into this plateau where, your adventure, the life of adventure, has kind of calmed down. It's hit a plateau. So at that point in life, where this was 2011, I was at a Christmas party. Somebody looked at me and said, this guy who is an acquaintance had run a lot of marathons. I don't think you can run a marathon. Somehow the topic went to marathons, and he said, not for you. And the idea of running a marathon was always in the back of my mind. I always wanted to do it. And so when he said that, it was a wake up call. It's like, what do you mean? You're telling me that I can't do something? And that's something that I would never accept. And so I decided then and there, that I want to really take this up, and there's no better time than now to do it. And so that's when I started, and I ran a 5K, I ran 10K, and then within a year, I promised myself that within a year I would run a full marathon, all 26 miles of it. And so I did. I ran my first marathon in San Francisco, which arguably is one of the hardest ones out there. But I lived close to San Francisco, so I had to do it then. So that's where it started. But, the way it started was quite interesting.
Fantastic journey, but because you mentioned in of course, we are going to talk about the book very soon about runaway growth, and I have lots of questions on this. On this journey of marathon, you mentioned about impossible, improbable, and inevitable.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that because that was very inspiring?
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite quotes. That's why I put it in the front of the book. Because when you first hear about something that feels impossible, so let me give you an example. After I ran my first marathon, I came across some inspiring stories of people that have done all seven continents. So I want to be part of that. But then when I heard about the Antarctica Marathon, I remember thinking, no, it's not for me. It's for some elite people, elite runners out there. I mean, how dare I even dream of running a marathon in Antarctica, right? Come on. Antarctica is not for running marathons, for normal people. So anyway, when that happens, right, you're in this first stage of impossible. Your first idea is, hey, this is impossible for me. It's for somebody else. Okay. And then I got I still thought, you know what, I should still try this. I should find out what it takes. And so got introduced to friends of friends who have done it, three levels in my network. Somebody has done it. And so I spoke to people, and slowly, little by little, I started thinking, huh, it's not impossible. It's probably improbable now at this point, right? Because you things start slowly working on you. You're thinking about it all the time, and then talking to these people, I just realized that it's not impossible, but it's improbable. But how do I get it done? So that's the second stage. And then the final stage comes when you start trying out a few things. You've heard that Antarctica is really cold. Okay, so you start picking cold runs to do. You hear that it's very hilly. Okay, I'll do hill runs, right? But I'll combine things and so on. And little by little, you're hitting these milestones when you go from improbable to inevitable. So you started at impossible, you came to improbable when you got exposed to some possibilities. And then when you tried it yourself, you think, huh, I think I can do this. I just have to make up my mind, right? It's about mindset. There you go.
Exactly, mindset. Yeah, it's all about the mindset. And you know what? Let's look at some pictures. Like
Yeah.
I love this. Like so, let's do the. You mentioned about Antarctica. Oh my God, I could now. I have to say impossible. Let's look at some pictures for the benefit of our audience here. We are meeting with Satish Shenoy here, author, speaker, and marathon runner who has done 7 continents and part of the club. And we're going to discuss a quick review of his book, recently written book, Runaway Growth, as you see it here. And again, this is Srinivasa from ItsdiffAcademy and Orality Infotainment. Okay, let's look at some pictures here. So this is the before.
Yeah, this is when we started out in Antarctica. We were on a Russian icebreaker ship called the Academic Eye Off. And then when we cross the Drake Passage, it's one of the toughest bodies of water in the world. 15 to 20-foot waves, right? Really high waves. So if you go to the after, you see it's really brutal out there, and people get seasick a lot. And the weather turned nasty, and we did bounce around quite a bit. For over 2 days, you're in this kind of situation.
Wow, that must have been a lot of preparation. You said it's not just your mindset is one thing, but we'll talk more about your preparation, the process, and the journey, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so let's look at a few more pictures.
yeah. This is my first marathon in San Francisco. You can see I was uh, I was still new to all this, but yeah, it was a huge step forward because there were some, as you can imagine, Sri, there were some challenging times during that first marathon where I thought, whose idea was this? When when I was in so much pain at mile 18 and mile 23, I was thinking, whose idea was this? This is not my idea, but it was. And so I had to take ownership and keep going. I remember this lady who came to me because I was howling in pain at mile 23 with cramps in both legs. And I remember this lady coming up to me and saying, son, I've been in this situation before. All you can do is take one more step. And I promise you, if you just do that, you will hit the finish line. Now, it's a simple yet powerful concept. One more step. That's all you focus on. Don't worry about you're at mile 23, there is 3.2 miles to go. Don't worry about all that. I mean, it so happens very often in life, right? That you're faced with what seems really, really challenging. But if you focus, if you're fully present, you can just focus on that next step and keep moving forward.
And then you mentioned about this pain. It's like weakness leaving the body. I like that.
Yeah, I actually, it's a funny story is I saw it in some bathroom in a gym.
Uh-huh.
I saw this. Gyms are all about motivating you, right?
Motivation,
So,
exactly.
so
Don't give
they,
up. Don't give up.
yeah. So they had put this. I thought it was lovely. It was so inspiring. Pain is weakness leaving the body, because pain, if you think about pain, it's temporary, but quitting is permanent. So if I think about this all the time, Sri. At mile 23, if I had not taken that one step, so many people quit marathons, right? They'll say, oh, this is not for me, get out. I've seen so many people just kind of go away, right? For various reasons. But I think about it all the time, because if I had not taken that one step, would I be speaking to you today? Would I have written the book? Would I have gone to Antarctica? I mean, there's so many, right? Could I, should I, would I, right? And it's just taking that one step and then keep doing it.
I remember a quote sometimes, like say, I do not remember honestly the author, but it says that the mind is like a parachute. It works only when it's open.
I love it. I'm going to write it down. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and we will find out who it is and we credit the author. But the point here is exactly you are receptive. First of all, you had a mindset, you had some pain, and we have to credit the mentor. See, the mentor and coach, as I see it, play a greater role in motivating and encouraging constantly, and then say, it's okay. It's like somebody saying, stop to smell the roses. Enjoy the journey that counts. Don't worry
yeah.
about, oh my God, so much. And I'm sure it's like preaching the choir here. I'm just listening from you, but so it's good. So the mentor. So what's your thought on the mentorship and coach on your journey to complete this big milestone?
Yeah. Yeah. People ask me if you had to kind of boil it down to three things, because three things is much more digestible than seven. I have seven things, but I would say mindset, mentors, and the magic of taking one more step, right? Three things. So, mentor is critical, super critical, because you need them for your growth. I feel mentorship is something that accelerates your growth,
Mm.
because without mentorship you can probably do it, but it would take you longer, it would be a harder journey, and it will just, and sometimes you might fail. But with mentors, you have the ability to accelerate that learning. So in my case, I was running with a group called Om Run. They're still it's part of Chinmay Mission in San Jose, and we have about probably more than 50 runners. There's a gentleman by the name of Ranga and Prasanna, and I quote them in the book because they were amazing mentors. It was not just one mentor, it was a team of mentors, coaches, and peers that I give full credit to. Right, I couldn't have done it without them, because they were there when I would hurt, or I have an injury, or something is not feeling right, or I'm So I'll give you one last story and then I'll stop. I remember the first time I was running up a hill. One of my mentors, his name is Prasanna, and if he hears this, he'll be smiling, because I remember him doing this, which is, I'm running up the hill. As you can imagine, running up the hill it's a struggle, right? You're kind of pushing hard and you're breathing hard. And he says, Satish, pump your arms, pump your arms, and the legs will follow. Now think about it. I said mentors help you accelerate your learning. They do more than that, but this acceleration, that the fact that, I mean, in physically as well as spiritually, it's accelerating your learning. And he was telling me a simple trick to get up that hill. Sri, you won't believe this, I've used it in every single instance since then, and I'm always grateful for my mentors.
Super cool, super cool. Okay, let's quickly cover this rest of the pictures here
Yeah.
quickly.
This is Cape Town in South Africa. It took me longer to get there than to actually run the marathon. Because of work. I could only go there for a day.
Okay.
Beautiful city. New Zealand, another beautiful place. I had to pick, so I decided to pick cities in continents which I had not never been to before. And so this was in Queenstown, New Zealand. Beautiful, beautiful place. One of the most beautiful places in the world, I would say.
So you follow a pattern, you follow a map, and
Yeah.
have how many people have done this before?
I think a few hundred people, maybe closer to 1,000, probably. I don't remember the exact numbers right now, but it is a few. It's a small club of people that have done it, and as you can imagine, it's logistically, financially, it's challenging, but yeah, I feel
Yeah,
lucky
when
to
I
be
say
part of it.
elite here, elite means the people with the right mindset, never give up, finishing strong. Those they belong to a group, so it will motivate a lot of folks who are watching and listening to this through our
Yeah.
podcasting on Google and iTunes and Orality. So I want them to encourage. So you are part of these. Maybe we should leave the links to the club, that the
Yeah.
marathon club, especially that you are part of, so people can get some guidance. And you yourself are a mentor and coach, so that's pretty good. So let's see
No,
one more
this was
here.
this was in Uruguay.
Ah,
That was in Uruguay. It was raining cats and dogs. You can see behind me. It's um, a very wet day. I remember I made some friends who were from Argentina, and we ran together. The beautiful thing I remember, I was coming at mile 18, I think, and there was this young girl who was from Texas, where I live now. I mean, I didn't know her from anybody, and she was crying because she was worried that she could not make it to the finish line. And I remembered my story in San
uh-huh.
Francisco. Now it was my turn to pay it forward. And I remember saying, I'm going to really be with you until you cross that finish line. Let's go, right? Take one more step, is all I told her. That's why I remember this marathon very fondly, because I felt like I could do something for somebody, and it was an amazing feeling.
And about in the book you mentioned about networking,
Mm.
community support system. So
Yeah.
can you please touch on that? I love it, especially it helped you. As I see, you joined a network, you talk to people, you get to know how they have done it, what are the pros and cons, how do you plan, you prepare and progress. I would like to hear from your own words on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's really, I call it my village, if you will. It's a virtual village, unlike, we growing up in a place like India where you have actually a physical village. This was a virtual village, right? And the technology allows you to connect with anybody all over the world. During my journey, which was over 7 years or so, I had the opportunity to not only meet people physically, the home run team, for example, but also connect with such great people like you were saying, open minds. They think nothing is impossible, right? So I got to meet so many great people. One of my inspirations is a gentleman by the name of Dan Waldschmidt. He has done what is called Everesting. At the point he did it, there were only 10 people in the world that had done it across the planet. 10 people. The idea there is you run like you were running up Mount Everest. You have to climb 29,000 feet and not stop. No sleeping, no stopping. You keep going. And I was fortunate to meet Dan. And, this is all throughout that journey. I would talk to Dan and say, what advice do you have for me? And I still stay in touch. I was just texting him the other day, and he's such an inspiring person, right? So I feel fortunate that my village is where I grew up, if you will. And I grew up because I could, take advice from people, coaching, and then share it with others, right? So there are, I will say this, part of that village is also what can you give back? Um, After I ran the 7 continents, I actually helped kids from 5 to 15, because these days, if you think about it, kids are stuck in front of their screens. And anything you can do to get them out and to see the possibilities is amazing. So I coached kids from 5 to 15. First year I did it, there were 5 kids that showed up. Second year, 15 children. Third year, before I left California, 53 children showed up. And so this is all part of the village. It's part of that community that we had created, where it's not only about, taking the advice, taking the help, but also giving back and making an impact.
So one thing which really struck me here is, in your journey, it sounds philosophical, but there are lots of obstacle that comes in the way, and I have seen some nice coaching tips that you shared based on your marathon journey. And then one thing, quote unquote, is never stop challenging yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I take it as a key takeaway for me.
Yeah. To me, never stop growing, never stop challenging yourself. Right. My wife says I'm a man of million interests. That's just part of me. Right. Never stop. Never say you can't do something. At least give it a shot and see if it's possible. Right. So, I used to live in Colorado. I used to climb 14ers, which is 14,000 foot mountains, 14,000 and greater foot mountains, because I felt like, it's possible. Many people have done it. Why not me? So don't stop challenging yourself. Even at work, if there's a project that I want to take up, I'll be the first one to say, yes, I want to do it, because again, it's an opportunity to grow and then give back. See, the way I look at things, right? If you're not growing, you have nothing to contribute, right? If I'm not challenging myself and if I'm not growing as a result, I'm not contributing meaningfully to society, right? So that's where it comes from.
So one thing, because the way I look at it is, if you stop challenging, you will stop growing. It will stop your growth, in other words.
Actually, Tony Robbins said it well. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because people tend to be in the comfort zone, something that
Yeah,
they have always been, and this is the, in a management concept, if you take it,
yeah,
and the fear of failure,
yeah,
being in a comfort zone, you don't want to come out, you don't network very well, you
yeah,
don't have a mentor, you don't have a seek guidance, you feel, but you complain. So I think, while we talk about marathon, but definitely I see a lot of relevance, I mean, your connection you give it to a startup mentality, a
yeah,
startup company growth, and other things. That's how you relate it, right? Let's talk about
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
people do
So
not think it's only about marathon. No, there's a lot of
no,
life lessons, a lot of connectivity to innovation, project management as milestone. Break a big chunk to small milestone. These are my takeaways from here. But I want to hear from you.
yeah, absolutely. Here's again, stories always convey what you want to hear from when you're talking about the impact the book has had, right? So I had a dermatologist reach out to me. He was trying to speak at a convention with all these dermatologists are entrepreneurs, and he said, "I loved the pictures that you showed of what it takes to run a marathon, the journey, and what it takes an entrepreneur, and kept it side by side, right? Because he said, I love the parallels that you drew between the two. And that's what made the difference for me. I want this to be shown to people. See, everybody's marathon, by the way, is different. I'm not suggesting by any means that people run marathons. That's not for everybody, probably. I mean, maybe it is, but there might be health reasons, etc. You can't do that. Well, your marathon might be different. So I ask people this question: what is your Antarctica? What's your Antarctica? Your Antarctica can be very different from mine, right? Because then okay, I thought Antarctica was impossible. Then it became improbable. Then it became inevitable. What's yours?
Very true. Very true. That means it's like constantly thinking about your bigger goals, because
Yeah.
this is a good segue because you mentioned about dreams.
Mm.
It's like uh, we started with impossible, improbable, and inevitable,
Yeah.
but then you started kind of peeling the onions. Like you have a dream, you have a go for a bigger goal, and then have some kind of a process to accomplish that goal
Yeah.
through networking, coaching, never give up, right mindset. So that's kind of the your storytelling is weaved in my understanding, and that was my key takeaway on that. Have a bigger goal, like you say, what's your Antarctica, and
Yeah.
never give up.
Yeah. One of the CEOs, one of the largest telcos out there, or call center companies, one of the CEOs, I was working on a project which involved, it was a multi-million dollar project. I asked him what his best advice was. He said, dream big, start small, move fast.
I like that.
And it's the best advice I've ever received, one of the best advice, because always start by dreaming big, but you have to start small because if you try to start, take a, what do they say about eating an elephant, right? Eat one bite at a time, right? So that you can chew on it and keep moving. So I was running this morning with a few friends in this community and people who want to do marathons. I'm like, okay, you can do that, but let's start with a 5K. Let's get to a 10K. Get to a half. And next February, we are going to all run together on a marathon.
It's like a product management. You get a feature roadmap, just start with prototyping, get a MVP, get phase one or release one, 1.1, 1.2, slowly
Yeah.
get to, and finally you can wow a customer. That's kind of my relation there.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I wanted to relate it to your coaching on in the book about the 5 steps, the 5 step concept. Would you mind just
Yeah.
giving the highlight on that, please? I
Yeah,
love to.
definitely. So if you look at that 5 step concept that I talk about, right?
Yep.
Brainstorm. So first step is brainstorm and reflect.
Yep.
Second is to visualize, because I find that visualization. So let's say I'm doing this podcast. Last night I was thinking this part. I'm visualizing this podcast getting to hundreds of thousands of people. I'm visualizing this podcast going well, very well. I visualize that I enjoyed speaking to you and getting to your audience. Right, my key message. All those things I'm visualizing, and then get energized about it. So in preparation for this, I was thinking about what messages that do I want to share? What's the impact do I want to make? So I get energized about that. Engage fully, right? So I'm not doing anything else, right? When I am doing a task, I am fully engaged, 100%, and getting rid of all distractions, focused on what I need to do, and then execute. I'm here on time. I'm really fully committed to this process, and then I'm executing what we need to do together to get the message out, right? So I just took this podcast as an example, but that applies to marathon running, that applies to a startup. I've been part of early stage startups where this kind of these steps really helped me, right? First, brainstorm and reflect. Second, visualize. Third, get energized. Fourth, engage. And fifth, execute.
Super cool in summarizing it for us. So the part that was made me to think and ask you this question. I heard in management they say, "What got you here will not get you there." That there is the Antarctica. That
Yeah.
there is your having a multi-million-dollar user subscription. For example, even if you apply to me, Orality app I just launched a couple of days ago for podcasting, ebook, and audiobooks. And my
Yeah.
goal is very big, as you said. I'm going to take your mentorship and guidance on this. Get 1,000 users to subscribe. Get then 10,000. So then you have to wow the customer means with providing the features. So can you touch on that? What got you here won't get there.
Yeah.
Okay. What should one do to accomplish that?
Yes. So I'll start with a running example, and then we can talk about a business example. But think about a 5K. Do you agree that most people can run a 5K or even walk a 5K? Most people can that are healthy, no problem, right? I was running with people today that could easily do a 5K. So they've not done much to kind of get past that milestone, right? They don't have to do much. They can probably still walk a 5K and be done with it. 10K will take a little more effort, little more planning, little more practice, right? Uh, and a half marathon will take probably 3 times or 4 times as much effort, planning, thinking, reflecting, learning, growing, and getting past that finish line. And then finally, marathon. It's a very different ball game. People ask me all the time, is preparing for a full marathon double the effort of
Hmm.
preparing for a half marathon? And this applies very well to business too, by the way. And I say, absolutely not. It's exponentially harder
Hmm.
because the your body starts kind of breaking down after mile 18, 19, 20. Your body starts breaking down, so you better be prepared with different techniques than what worked for a 10K or a half. Because what worked for a 10K and a half, this is why I say what got you here won't get you there. What worked for a smaller goal might not necessarily work for a bigger goal or a more complex goal, right? So another dimension I'll give you, when you travel to Antarctica or when you travel to Africa, you have the complication of jet lag. Maybe you don't have that when you started because it was in a local marathon, right? So there are these complications that can get introduced as you take on bigger and bigger things, and what worked in a smaller goal will likely not work in a much bigger one.
Yeah, I say thank you very much for that because you need to prepare yourself
Yeah,
for a bigger goal, and because it needs a totally different stage. See, I've seen companies, startup companies, right? There is a founder for the
yeah,
company, and then after a while, they just bring a CEO for the company to run,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
they get much more as chief operating officer, as I understood, because it needs a different way to scale. You can't,
yeah,
you might be the founder, but they bring people from the other environment, right, in
yeah,
the field, in the industry, who are much more experienced, etc., to complement the founders, the what you can say, my baby, or the
yeah.
ideas and innovative ideas and creative concepts, to take it and scale, to
Yeah.
sustain scalability, right? Is
Yeah,
that
I
right?
mean, for example, going back to your startup example, what you did to get product market fit in that initial phase, right?
Right.
You did some manual things, you created prototypes, all that, right? Now, 5 years later, you're at $2 million revenue or $10 million of revenue. You can't do the same thing that you did then to get to the next level.
Hmm.
That will never work, right? You have customers that already are using your product. What you did when you first started will never work when you're at 5 or $10 million of revenue and you want to get to that next level. You need to do a whole set of other different things and than what worked before.
Cool. As they say in innovation, right? You take care of your current customer segment first, work on that next adjacent, and then go on totally new market, as they say. We can have a separate discussion on that, but that's my favorite topic. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. So I like your quote here on Benjamin Franklin here, which is basically, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. I love that.
yeah. Yeah, and then we'll start with running again, right? I mean, this applies to meetings or business meetings, right? Every Sunday night, I look at my week and prepare for the week. Basically, look at the calendar and say, what's coming? What do I need to prepare? And then get ready for the week, right? A marathon was similar. If you don't prepare, I used to tell people all the time, people would show up at a marathon start line and run and hope that everything will go well. Unfortunately, most of the time, it doesn't because you're not prepared. And if you didn't prepare, if you run a marathon, and you will pay for it after the fact. You'll not walk, not be able to walk for the next 2 days. Or I've seen this happen again and again because there is a lack of preparation. Right? Think about it, Sri. Anything you do, right? If you're not prepared, you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping that it works. And I also talk about something called showing up, right? Showing how you show up is important because there are various ways you can show up. You can show up, you'll see this in corporate life, right? Some people will show up in a meeting, they won't say a word, they are
Mm.
pure spectators, right? They're not prepared, they just don't say a word. They listen to the meetings, maybe they're doing other things, and then they're gone. Some others will do a little bit of preparation. They are they are there a little more engaged. Probably they might say a word or two. They might say. The third kind of person is they're fully prepared, they're engaged, they take action, they say, give me this action, I'll go work on it, etc. That's the third level. The fourth and final level, and this became very apparent to me, is when I was coaching kids. This became very apparent. You're showing up not just for yourself, prepared, fully prepared. You're showing up for somebody else. I'll, like let's say you're leading a meeting. If you are not prepared, what message does it show or send to people in your team, right?
Mm.
As a leader, what message does it send? People think, oh, I can fly by the seat of my pants. Nobody will notice. Everybody notices. Everybody can tell. They just won't say anything because you're the boss, right? So preparation is key. How you show up is key because it not only has impact for you, it also has impact for the others around you.
Super cool. I love the relation, how you brought the relationship between marathon and the meetings, because one of the key lessons that I got from here is showing up,
Yeah,
and showing up and engaging.
yeah,
While engaging, contribute. And while contributing, as my other mentor, Rajesh Shetty, used to say, expand the capacity of others. It's
yeah.
always not what is in it for me. It's like
Oh,
you are giving it to them. You are expanding somebody's capacity. Guess what? You might get something out of it at the end of the day. Nevertheless,
oh,
you help someone.
I didn't know this. This is going to be impromptu now. Rajesh is one of my greatest mentors. I mean, his name didn't come up because he's not a running mentor. But for me, he's been a life mentor. He's like a brother to me. I think many people would probably say the same thing, knowing how Rajesh is. He would always say, is there anything that you can do with a little bit of incremental effort that means a lot to somebody else? Right? So, for example, maybe using a Google Doc, or maybe running in this case, knowing about how to run a 5K it takes very small incremental effort for me, but it might mean the world to somebody else who's trying to get fit. How can I contribute in a small way that has a huge impact for somebody else? Rajesh would say that all the time, and it's funny that we have a common thread in Rajesh. He's one of my favorite mentors. He's changed. He's really made a huge impact on my life.
Right, entrepreneur, coach, and writer and speaker, and of course he has been featured in my show when I did in Stanford University College Radio, ItsdiffAcademy Academy and ItsdiffAcademy. So pretty much we are in touch, and I always consult him for guidance. And anyway, good, we have something common. So cool. As always here. So on the book front, right?
Yeah,
So first of all, the key thing that you mentioned about is while you're trying to excel through your preparation, through your growth mindset, and trying to remove get I mean seek help from the networking. I'm kind of summarizing it here so that to
yeah,
all the obstacles are removed to reach your goals, etc. What is your next big thing? right? So, which is
Yeah.
basically constantly I see that what's the next mountain to climb? What is the next marathon to run? What is
Yeah.
the next thing to innovate?
Yeah.
So, when do we do that? Because I have a task on hand. I got to finish something. I got to excel in this.
Yeah.
Now, while I am focusing on that one,
Yeah.
it is the time for me to think about what's next right now. What is your secret recipe there? And I know it's covered as part of your seven success here, seven life
Yeah.
and business lessons. I just
Yeah.
maybe you can highlight it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll say two things. I'm happy to cover the seven principles, but what's next for me with this, when it comes to the book and this journey, is moving from being the hero, right? If you think about it, when I was running the marathon, I was the hero, if you will, right, within quotes. I want to be the guide now for others. People say, hey, are you going to run a marathon on the moon? That's not important to me anymore. What is important is, can I help somebody else run their marathon much better, much faster, much easier than I was able to run mine? Right. So I think if you think about it, Sri, you've been a mentor to people. You've done a lot of community work. You've done some amazing things, Sri. The little I know about you, so you've been a guide to many, right? So in life we play four roles, right? Victim, villain, hero, and guide. Which one do you want to be, right? We all play those roles. We take on those roles at different times in life, but um, for me it's about moving from being the hero to being the guide now. That's what I want to accomplish next. Did I answer your question, hopefully? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you want to be a guide, which is very good. But my question from an individual listener perspective: how
Hmm.
do I prepare myself for the next big thing while I have a given task on hand? Because the general tendency of people is let's finish what we have. Don't even worry about it because you got to do justice to the current project. So where
Yeah.
is the time for me to prepare? So I was just
Yeah.
trying to get some insights from a business perspective as well, or even it
Yeah.
could be a project in life. So
Yeah.
focus on what you have first. Finish
Yeah.
it, prepare, plan, execute very well, finish
Yeah.
strong. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you have to, get your tentacles, antenna open to be receiving some ideas. What's happening in the world? What's the new trend? What is the new technology? Who's doing what? What's the market? How is it changing? Those kind of things, right? There's
Yeah.
always, it's never ending. But sometimes, you feel like, oh my God, can I get some guidance on this?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, it's where you. So everybody's different when it comes to that, right? But for me, what has worked is, I work best when I have multiple things going on in parallel. Because even when I was running a marathon, I was running a partnerships team at a large company. I was being a father and a husband, and I want to do each of those things well. But what's next, right? Each of these tasks, I love doing these things in parallel because I can devote energy to something, stay fully focused on that, but also move to something else, give some energy to that, and then move to you don't want to pick more than maybe three things you want to work on at a time, right? That's me. And that's how I always kept this, you're juggling plates all the time,
Right.
right? And you don't want any plate to drop. But that's how I operate, right? It's not multitasking per se. When you do the task, you focus on it, you give it 100%. But then by switching between tasks, and a limited number of tasks, I could accomplish a lot more. People ask me all the time, how do you manage your time? I say, I don't manage my time, I manage my energy, right? And what I
Wow.
what I what I give my energy to, I know when I'm most productive. I'm an early riser. I'm most productive in the mornings. My energy is high in the mornings, right? So I give my energy to a limited number of things at any given time. And by the way, I don't know what it is for you. I wrote this book when I was walking. I'm a walking writer, if you
Wow.
will.
Interesting. Uh-huh. You dictate
So
yourself and then your notes, right?
exactly. You know, everybody's different. I was reading Sarah, the lady who who's a very famous Shark Tank entrepreneur. Um, I forget her last name, Sarah. Sarah used to, even though her house was 5 minutes away from her workplace, she would take a drive all around town for an hour because she was very good at thinking in the car when she was
Wow.
driving.
Okay.
For me, it is when I'm walking, ideas come to me.
Wow.
I act on them, right? I document them. I use OneNote on my mobile phone. I'll make a note of that and I'll say, okay, this is the next thing I'm going to work on. I'm a Toastmaster, as you know, a distinguished
Yes.
Toastmaster. Um, what is interesting is I have a list of probably 50 speeches I want to do at Toastmasters. All those speeches came to me when I was walking around or when
Good.
I was on my run because I'm thinking I continuously want to think and the creative side of me comes out then. For you it might be different. It might be when you take the shower or maybe you're hanging out with your wife, whatever it is, right? What works for you might be different.
Interestingly, you're answering your question here on how to manage your time, how to be efficient. So, which is good. So let's go back to your, marathon running for in 7 continents. The famous people are really looking forward to Mumbai.
Yeah.
Tell me about this, please.
Yeah, Mumbai, I had to pick a place in Asia, right? Usually I would pick places that I'd never been to run my marathon. So if you think about South America, it was Uruguay. If you think of Africa, I'd never been to Cape Town, I picked that place. And so on, right? New Zealand, I'd never been to Queenstown. I picked that place to run. But Asia was different. I would not pick anything else except India because that's where I grew up. And so Mumbai, one of my mentors that I mentioned, Prasanna, was also running Mumbai. I stayed with him and his parents, and we had a great time. Mumbai was so interesting. It was one of the most well organized marathons across the world. I say this, and people look at me in surprise. They're like, "What do you mean?" There's always anarchy. You get these pictures of India, and there's a lot going on, a lot of sensory overload, right? But I will say Mumbai was one of my favorites for various reasons. One, it was beautifully organized. Even the porta potties were super clean. You could sit there and right, beautifully organized. Lots of aid stations right along the way. Lots of people, people coming out and supporting you because Mumbai is such a crowded place. One good result of that. See, a lot of marathons. What happens is you start and there's a lot of crowd and then nobody for the middle of the race, right? For like 20 miles or 15 miles, there's nobody around you. And you're feeling all alone. I mean, you have some runners around you, but everybody's, is trying to make it to the next mile and the next mile. Mumbai is not that way. Mumbai, if people are everywhere, people are dancing, people are singing,
Cheering, cheering.
right? And I remember at one point I was getting a little hungry. I would think I was at mile 17 or so, and I'm coming up to Bandra, and there's this little boy standing holding up my favorite biscuits of my life. Can you
Good.
guess?
Parlay.
There we go. Parle G. He's holding up a packet of Parle G. Little boy standing on the side of the street, and he's holding up and saying, "This is for you." And he's running alongside me and saying, "This is for you." And I was like, "Oh!" And I take a couple of biscuits, have them. It gave me so much energy
Wow.
to keep going, right? And it is such a beautiful city, Amchi Mumbai. I
Amshi
say,
Mumbai. Yeah, good, good, good. Yeah. So one interesting thing. So it's well organized. That means there will be very many people running at the same time, and
yeah.
from door to door, were you able to improve your clocking, the time clocking, because it's
Actually, Mumbai
different
was
place, right?
yeah, Mumbai was very interesting also because my doctor had said I should not run Mumbai
I see.
because about 2 weeks before the race, I got an infection on the leg.
Ah,
And in fact, I have other pictures that show this picture that you put up didn't show that, but I had a band aid on my leg.
ah, okay,
The
okay.
band aid was because the doctor had said, hey, it's an infection, it needs to heal. You might not never be able to run again if you run. So
Hmm.
please don't run. So I said to the doctor, I remember saying, after months of preparation, after booking those tickets and being in Mumbai, if you expect me that I'm not going to at least walk, you must be kidding, right? So I did run the race,
You had a
and
lot of willpower, man.
yeah, so I did run it, and I did it in decent time. I think it was just over. I mean, this one because I was walking for portions of it. It was just around 5 hours. My best time is under 10 minutes a mile. Um, to me, that personal record became less important. Like in Uruguay, for example, when
Correct.
I had to stop and help that girl, to me that PR was personal record or PR. That's what we all runners say. Was less important to me at that point because helping that girl was much more important. This was in Prague, one of my fastest races, one of the most challenging. Look at the floor, look at the road that I'm standing on. Prague is covered in cobblestone streets,
Oh, okay.
the worst surface a runner can run on.
Oh, okay. So gone through all this endurance, your willpower. Oh my God, all great things that we are hearing. And then this one is interesting too.
Yeah, this is once I finished Antarctica. They have this ceremony on the ship, and Antarctica was my last uh, continent. Right, I'd kept it aside because I wanted to finish in Antarctica. There was a chance I would not finish, right? Because actually, out of 118 people that went on that ship, about half were, I think, family and friends. So even if you take 50, right, about 20% didn't finish.
Oh,
20% did not finish the race, right? Because if you didn't make it halfway through in 2 hours, 45 minutes or so, that was the cutoff, because the weather comes in Antarctica
oh, I see. I
as
see.
it approaches the evening. So they don't want to be stranded on the island. They want you back at the ship. So that's why they say 2 hours, 40 minutes or 45 minutes if you are not at the 13 miles point, because it's a very tough race, right? 3,000 feet
Yes.
of up
Yes.
and down. If you're not there, they pull you out or they give you the chance to complete a half marathon. So, anyway, this one was at the ceremony, they give you the seven continent medal. I come back into my room to drop off the medal. And my roommate, this gentleman Rajesh, his name also happens to be Rajesh. I've met some amazing Rajeshes in my life, and this one was also Rajesh. And he says, "Why don't you hold it up? Because this is an amazing
Uh-huh.
accomplishment."
Of course, because big feat, man, and a great accomplishment.
And
Yes.
you can see
I see.
behind me is the porthole of the cabin in the ship,
Oh, I see. I see. I see.
right? So it was a beautiful moment where I was holding it up, and
Super.
yeah,
Yeah, and I could see all the medals behind you in your screen that you're sharing. It's
yeah,
wonderful one. Very, very proud and nice to talk to you. Very inspiring. How you kind of see the marathon for life. It's not just marathon running as a sports or a hobby, but you're just comparing it to the life. And also, we talked about startup mentality and how it can help in the professional career, and also some of the common things that we talked about was networking, then the community, expanding the somebody else's capacity, having a mindset,
yeah,
etc. I
yeah.
just wanted to ask one last question about what's your favorite part of the book.
Oh, it's like picking your favorite child. That's a tough one, right? Because you never want to pick. I have two children. I'll never pick my favorite child from that because all children are
Maybe
equal.
favorite part of storytelling, I would put it. That's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, it's great that you asked that question. My favorite part is one of the favorites. Is if you look at chapter 10 on audacity. By the way, I'm a big fan of quotes, as you can tell, because I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
quotes
yeah. Of
all
course,
over.
of course.
So I love this quote: "Courage is not having the strength to go on; it is going on when you don't have the strength." Right.
Wow.
So that was by Teddy Roosevelt. Amazing quote. I love this because this particular part of the book, because it brings me back to that point in time, that moment. And that moment, there are these hair raising, they say, if you can feel,
Hair racing
and
in the end, they say, right? Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yeah.
my hair is standing up when I start to read this part.
It's goosebumps, you can say, right?
Goosebumps,
Yeah,
exactly.
goosebumps is that, right, right, right.
So it goes like this: March 20th, 2019, 5:17 a.m. Somewhere near the Shetland Islands in the northeast part of Antarctica. I stood on the bow of the Russian icebreaker ship Academic Ioff. It felt like I was in a scene from the movie Titanic with Jack and Rose standing on the bow, except my Rose was back home in San Jose, California. My Rose is Deepa, my wife. I was alone, but not lonely. I was freezing, but at peace. It was blissfully quiet, except the dull hum of the eye off, which had dropped anchor in the bay, the constant lapping of waves at the ship's side, and the sound of frolicking penguins and seals in the distance breaking through the icy waters were a sheer delight. So I'll stop here because, I would go on, but I remember standing and watching the sunrise. We had just crossed, we had had 2 rough days of the seas, right? Remember that 15 to 20 foot waves? You feel like you're in a cradle again. You're getting pushed around. In fact, in this icebreaker, they actually have these bars hold, for putting your hands. They have it throughout the ship because they don't want you to fall over when you're walking around. And they also have barf bags every 5 feet. You know why? Because chances are you're going to throw up when
Mm,
you're in the ship over those 2 days. And
mm,
so, anyway, we had gotten past that. We had gotten to Antarctica. The whole ship was sleeping, pretty much, except 5 people probably that had gone out. The ship was standing still. The sun was rising, and this was the scene. And it was just one of the most beautiful sunrises I've ever seen.
beautiful. You're a great storyteller. And by the way, just to let you know, it was a wonderful experience. And I like the way the book is also organized well, because you talk about a concept and then you talk about the principles. And it's not just theory. You wanted some action to be taken from this with some cheat sheet so people can write it up and follow through, and how some of these principles can be applied, like you say about the 7 life and business lessons, the 5 steps, and those some of these are quantified so people can take care of the steps. So this is good. Appreciate such a great mentorship and guidance, and the being a coach. So thank you, Satish. It was wonderful. Really, I enjoyed. It took some time for us to get to this point. Maybe
Yeah.
that's destiny, right? Okay. So thank you, Satish, for a wonderful time here. It was a journey, I would say, in the last 60 minutes or so. And we wish you great success on behalf of ItsdiffAcademy Entertainment, ItsdiffAcademy, and Orality Infotainment. Basically, people can check this podcast and, of course, this video as well of this interview, and wherever they normally find their podcast as It's Leadership and Career. And Satish, wishing you great success, and we wish you to write more and more books sharing your experience and coaching all of us and the younger generation. They need all the great experience. Thank you.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
Srinivasa.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.